Hey folks, Sandy Ridge here, and this is the next part of Sandy's guide to cover gigs, specifically how to get booked and how much you can charge for playing in a bar or restaurant. Now I got a lot to cover today, and but before I do, please like, subscribe. You can actually subscribe by hitting the little button that's in the corner here. And please leave a comment. Like, I'm going to be talking about how much you can expect to get paid, but I'll be the first one to tell you most of my experience is based on specific parts of Ontario. So I'm actually really curious to know what the going pay rate is for cover band musicians in other countries, in the United States, or even larger cities within Canada. So yeah, here we go. Should be fun. My first few years of gigging, I actually would go around to various bars and stuff and basically hand them burned CDs of me playing with my phone number, telling them, hey, give me a call. That's not the case anymore. Heck, it can be hard to find a CD player nowadays. So nowadays, you need what's called an electronic press kit. Now, what an EPK is all of the materials that you're going to use to give to promoters and booking agents that is going to get you into the venue. Now, the specifics of what you include in your electronic press kit are going to obviously vary. But here in general are some things that I recommend that you have in yours in order to get booked. Now, the first thing I actually suggest is having an email template that you have put a lot of preparation in for and that you can change to suit the needs of each individual bar. Remember that, and yes, I learned this from experience, make it specific to each bar. Now we are going to talk about the phone call later, but most bars are going to want you to they're just going to want you to email them. So it's important to have a well thought out template that is designed to draw them in and get you booked. In the email, you want to include some basic information about the band, what kind of music you do, some of the other places that you've played at, things like that. So for example, here is actually a sample one that I have sent to a bar and ended up getting me booked for a show. Hi John, I'm emailing you about possibly playing a show at the Rock and Roller Bar. I'm an acoustic guitar player who plays rock and country covers, and I'm trying to fill up my fall schedule. Got a lot of experience and have been playing out for over a decade. I've included a link to my Facebook page below. It has a few videos of me playing taken from a cell phone at a few of my shows. While the videos below are from a bar and restaurant show I did, I have played in many different environments, including cocktail parties, cruise ships, and retirement homes. And I always tailor my song selection to the needs of the venue. Please let me know if you have any dates in mind. Now, a couple of things to note here. In the email, I actually said I'm filling up my fall schedule. I sent this email in June. This immediately implies to the bar owner, hey, I'm so popular that I'm getting booked up months in advance. You want to hire me because everyone else is going to. Number two, while I give them an idea of the kind of music I do, I make a point of telling them, hey, I take your needs into account. I am happy to tailor my set list to exactly what you want in your restaurant or bar. And finally, the last line, I ask them, hey, please send me a bunch of dates that are available. This implies, hey, it's a foregone conclusion that you're going to want to bring me in. Of course you are. Lots of other places have done it as well, and I would be the perfect fit for your bar or restaurant. So please, just send me a date. We'll figure it out. It implies, again, that you're very popular and that you mean business. Now, something else I would add, take the 5 minutes and create an email address that is specific to your musical act. It looks professional. It takes a very small amount of time. Just makes you look more serious. Now, the other part that every electronic press kit is going to need is links to social media. This is absolutely vital. While I don't necessarily think you need to create a website for your band or other musical act, you at the very least have to have a Facebook page. On this Facebook page and any social media that you use, you want to have a ton of photos. You want to have videos of you playing. Live videos are better, but if you don't have any of those, even just your band jamming in their rehearsal space will do the trick. The booker is going to look at these videos, one, to get an idea of what you sound like, and two, to find out what kind of show that you're going to give. Different restaurants and bars have different requirements. Some want a more family-friendly show, other ones they want you to be the life of the party and get people going. They're going to judge your ability to do this on the videos that are on your social media. Now, the other reason that social media is vital is it'll give the bar an idea of what kind of following you have. You are an investment to the bar or restaurant. They are paying you to see if you can make them money. So they want an idea of how many people you can bring to the table, bring into the bar and restaurant. So, invite everyone you know. Everybody. Everyone in the band, get as many followers on your social media as possible. I have been turned down before because I didn't have enough followers. At the same time, once I got more followers, I've been chosen over other musical acts over ones who didn't have as many. So, it's the game, you gotta play it. Now, I mentioned that you need to have a pile of videos on there. Live videos are better, okay? The more people who film you, actively encourage them when you're at your shows to film you and put it onto your Facebook or whatever page you're using. This shows that you engage with the audience. The audience actually cares enough about you to film you. And again, it shows the booking agent what kind of following you have. Also on your social media, you need to include evidence of past gigs that you've had. They're going to look at the past events and the past shows that you've had, one, to figure out if you actually help out with advertising, which you should, and to find out if you're playing at similar places. Now, as a YouTuber, or at least a wannabe YouTuber, I've got a lot of different social media. I have Instagram, I have TikTok, I have Facebook, and I'm also involved in a Quipboard. You don't have to have all of those, okay? What I would actually suggest if you're performing live, okay, is figure out what the most popular social media apps are for your target demographic. So I play generally for people who are 30 years old and over. A lot of them aren't on Instagram, but most of them are on Facebook. Now, if you're just starting out, I understand you might not have all of this stuff already put together. I strongly suggest that you book an open mic. Go there, play your butt off, and bring in a ton of friends who are going to take photos of you and videos of you. Boom. You have all the materials you need for an awesome social media presence. Plus, playing the open mic is going to give you some much needed live experience, which is going to come in handy. Because next, we're going to talk about the conversations and how you go about booking. The nuts and bolts of it. Here we go. Now, before you start calling up bars and restaurants, you need to do a little bit more research. Go on social media, Facebook is great for this, and find out which bars and restaurants actually have live music in your city. You need to target these ones first because, trust me, it's a lot easier to get booked into a place that already has live music than convince a place that doesn't usually have live music that they should. Now, in the past 15 years or so, I've actually moved to 3 different cities. So a little trick, what I used to do is whenever I went to a new city, I would actually find musical acts that were very similar to my own. I would go onto their social media page and I would figure out where they were playing. Boom, I had a list of places to call. Okay, so now that you know which places you're going to call, it comes down to when do you call them. My suggestion for most bars and restaurants, okay, 9 to 11 a.m. or from about 2 until 4 p.m. Do not call during mealtime. I've actually had restaurant owners flat out tell me before, listen, if you don't know how this place works, I can't answer a phone at noon during lunch, I'm not interested in hiring you. I made all the mistakes so you don't have to. So when I got through to a person, I would first ask to speak with a manager or whoever books the music. Now, sometimes they weren't available. Now, I would always leave my number saying, hey, please call me back. But I'd also ask, like, hey, is there a better time that I can call? Because, well, a lot of these bars and restaurants get a lot of these types of phone calls. It's much easier to call and talk to the person immediately than just hope that they call you back. Now, assuming that I actually got through to the person who books the music, I would then give them my pitch. You need to work on your sales pitch. Well, here's how mine would usually go. Hey John, thanks for taking my call. So here's the deal. I know you're busy. I'll try and make this quick. My name's Eric. I go by Sandy Ridge. I'm an acoustic act with about 15 years experience. I'm playing in bars and restaurants just like the Rock and Roller Club. So yeah, here's the deal. I was wondering if there's maybe an email that I could send, because I know you're not going to hire me without, hearing what I sound like, right? But any chance I could get that email address off you and send it through to you? Thanks. Talk to you soon. Bye. So in the pitch, I give them a quick idea of exactly what it is I do. I thank them for their time, and I acknowledge that, hey, you're very busy. This shows that I understand their business and I appreciate them, which means they're going to be much more apt to read the email that I'm eventually going to send them. This also helps because I don't actually make them uncomfortable. By asking them if there's an email address that I can send an email to, I'm not putting them on the spot and demanding an answer right away. When you put people on edge, it doesn't usually end well for you. Now look, this is obviously just an example, okay, and I've gotten gigs in plenty of different ways, but this does give a decent idea. You're going to figure out pretty quickly if they're interested in you or not, partly based on whether they ask you questions. So generally, if the more questions they ask, the more they're actually interested. Either way, you need to keep it professional but friendly. It's kind of a fine line here because on one hand, business owners respect people who want to do business. They want to work with someone who is a professional. But at the same time, there's no way around it. You're there to bring the party. So you kind of have to tread a fine line between being professional and showing the person like, hey, I'm fun. I'm a guy who can get things going. So there is a level of casualness in there, but you do at the end of the day have to keep things somewhat professional. Now here's a couple of tips, and these are all based on things that I learned the hard way. So first off, when you're researching these bars and restaurants, actually find out if they already have a mechanism for hearing from bands and auditioning them. A lot of websites will actually have, if they hire a lot of music, they'll have a part that says, hey, email us right here, potential bands, live bands, please email us here and we'll get back to you. You don't want to call these people because it'll just tick them off. Tip number 2, only actually call places that show similar styles of music as the one you do. Don't go in there thinking, okay, well, I can just change my setup. I'm a country act, and it's a punk bar. I can maybe make my country music a little bit more punky. It's not going to work and no one's going to want to hear you. Number 3, keep a spreadsheet going. Depending on the size of the city, you could be calling a lot of different bars, and it's impossible to keep track of all of it. Okay, so in the spreadsheet, I would include the name of the bar, the contact person, so I knew who to ask for, the phone number, so I didn't have to look it up again, and the date that I first called them. You want to split it up because if you're calling the same place every day, you're going to get blacklisted. And the final tip, for the love of God, do not piss off the bar staff. Bar owners depend on the bar staff more than anything for figuring out which musical acts to bring in. Those bar staff can be your best friend or your worst enemy. Now, this is how I book the majority of my shows, but of course, there's plenty of ways to get booked. Sometimes I would be out at a restaurant just having dinner. I'd get to chatting the servers up, the bar staff, and the manager. I'd mention I play music. Boom, I had a gig. Now, the other method for getting booking, and I cannot stress this one enough, play open mics. First off, most places that have open mics, they hire musical acts on the weekends. The open mic is just something they usually do on a weekday night. So by going in there, first off, you can show them what kind of music you play and what you sound like, and you can strike up a conversation. I occasionally got gigs this way by literally just going to the open mic, playing my 2 or 3 songs that I was there to play, and before and after saying like, hey guys, if you like what you hear, please tell the bar staff I'd love to do a show here. I magically got hired. Now, the other reason you do open mics is to network with other local musicians. We all have personal lives, things come up. If I have to cancel a gig, I'm going to go into my little contact list of various musicians within the city, and I'm going to call them up saying, hey, I can't play at this bar. Can you fill in for me? That's another way that I got a lot of shows. Being able to fill in last minute. Okay, now for the reason that I'm assuming a lot of you folks clicked on this video. Let's talk money. How much I usually got paid, how to negotiate your pay. Let's get into it. Now I'm going to get this one out of the way first, and this is also going to be controversial. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me when I say this. Feel free to add a comment. These are my thoughts. I stand by this. You're eventually going to get asked to play a show for free. To me, the answer is a hard no. Let me explain. I believe that if the bar or the venue that I'm playing at and the promoter are making money, it's only right that I should be making money too. Not just that, I believe that if you play without actually getting financially compensated, you're actually doing a disservice to other musicians. You are teaching the general public, these bar owners and the audience, everyone, that music isn't something that you need to be paid for. It's not of any value, and I refuse to accept that. I recognize that for many bars and restaurants, it is incredibly difficult to make ends meet, and the margins are extremely tight on everything. But at the end of the day, if you can't afford a service, then you shouldn't have it. And make no mistake, live music is a service. Now, there are a couple of times where you should play for free. Charity shows, I have no issue with people playing free for those. I've done plenty of them in my day and will happily do them again. In those situations, though, I will mention, do a little bit of research. You might want to figure out if the charity is legitimate. Otherwise, you could be connecting your name to something that's not good. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to get into the meat and potatoes of this. Here's a bunch of things that I think you need to consider when you're negotiating your pay. First off, you need to know your worth. You need to factor in what it's actually going to cost you to do this show. How much gear is required? Do you have to bring in other equipment? Also, how far away is it? I'm not going to drive 2.5 hours and play for another 4 hours, then drive back home for $50. Second tip, never offer up the first offer. The first thing that I would say when a booker would ask me, how much do you charge, is, well, do you have a standard rate? Sometimes I found out that, yeah, their standard rate was a lot higher than I would have charged them. Never offer up the first number. Next, find out if you're actually allowed to collect tips. This will affect how much ultimately that I would charge a bar. Also, some places, tips, it's actually the expected norm. And the promoter will actually, put down a bucket halfway through the show to collect money. The audience knows this is going to happen. Now, on the other hand, some places won't actually allow you to accept tips, which again should be reflected in what you charge the bar or restaurant. Now, the same thing goes for merch sales. Some places don't want you actually selling your CDs or whatever you have. I've never personally encountered that one. I have had a few bars that told me not to collect tips, which, fair enough. They paid high enough that it didn't really matter. Now, also a few other things to consider. Some places will actually have kind of alternate payment methods. So I've played at a handful of bars where I actually got, I think it was like 10% of the total bar sales for the night. So obviously the more people I bring in and the more they drank, the more money I made. Same thing, I've had plenty of places offer me, basically you get whatever the cover at the door. So each person pays $5 or whatever, and that's what I get at the end of the night. It's up to you whether you take those shows, but it's a very popular method for payment. You should also find out what kind of extras get included in your payment for the night. So if the venue serves food, a free meal is pretty common. A lot of places will give you free drinks or free drink tickets. I've actually played at a lot of breweries where at the end of the night, along with my pay, they'll give me like a 6-pack or something. You should also try and find out the method of how you're actually going to get paid. Most places just hand you cash at the end of the night. I've had a handful of them that would actually cut me a check. I had one or two that e-transferred me the next day. fair enough, but it's something to consider, and you're going to have to get things set up if you don't already have the mechanism to accept payment that way. Now, most of the time, the payment part gets ironed out in the email back and forth with the booker. But I have had a few times where I've actually had to go into the bar or restaurant and sign off on a contract. Make sure to read it thoroughly. Most of them are pretty self-explanatory. You know, I will perform on this date for this amount of time, for this amount of money. But often, sometimes, well, not often, but sometimes they will include certain caveats that you have to adhere to. So, for example, I had one place where, yeah, I could sign off and they were paying a pretty good amount. And so I did end up doing the show. But the one caveat was that I wasn't allowed to play in the same city the week before or the week after. This was obviously done because the bar and restaurant wanted a better guarantee that I'd be able to draw in more people. If I'm playing in one place on Friday night and then the next night I'm playing it down the road, I'm going to be splitting my audience, and not as many people are going to come to one of my shows. Now that that's all out of the way, here is what I personally usually got paid for playing a 3 to 4 hour gig, usually covers, at a bar or a restaurant. So my average pay for the night for playing a bar or restaurant doing a cover gig was typically about $200. Okay? Varied a little bit. Well, it varied quite a bit, actually. Some places I would get like 100, 125. A couple of them I actually got like $300 or $400. But on average, about $200. Now, in addition to that, I usually got a free meal out of it. Usually got a couple free drinks. If it was a brewery, I usually had to take home a 6-pack, like I mentioned earlier. And then there were tips. If I was allowed to collect tips, I typically I usually got about $50 for the night. In addition to that, I might make up to $30 in CD sales. I have a little EP. It sold a little bit. Now, these amounts are all in Canadian dollars, and they're based on where I have played, which is mostly small towns and cities in southern Ontario. Now, I'd be very curious to hear what other places pay. I'd be very curious to find out what cover gigs pay in Toronto, but I've never lived in Toronto. I've never done a gig in Toronto, so I'm not the guy to ask. Now, these were all for one-man acoustic singer-songwriter type shows. If you are in a band, I actually think it's a little bit less per person anyway. From what I've heard around here, you can expect $100 to $150 per person, and then whatever you guys decide to split as far as tips and merch sales go. Well, there you go. You've now started booking gigs. So be sure, whenever you've booked the show, make sure to make an event page online and advertise the hell out of it. You got to make posters. You got to tell all your friends. You got to get as many people there as you can. The bar has a responsibility to help promote you, but ultimately they're going to expect a lot out of you for getting people to the show. It's not necessarily fair that it works out that way, but that's the reality. So that's about it for me on booking shows and electronic press kits. I hope I've been able to impart some knowledge and that you're ready to start booking shows. I really do wish that there was something like this online and easily accessible when I was starting out, because trust me, I made a lot of mistakes. And you will too. You should be okay with that and, get used to it. That's how you get better. So please subscribe, again, hit the little button right over there, and leave a comment. Maybe I've missed something. If you've been gigging for a while in a cover band or something similar, okay, leave a comment. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you got some other tips that I just didn't get around to or didn't think of. Or heck, maybe you got some idea that would have made my life a lot easier if I had known about it. So yeah, please leave a comment. This is Sandy Ridge Music, where tone and tech collide. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.